So when you feel resistance, whether it has been named frustration or sadness or tension, it is your body's reveal to you that there's something on the other side of that, deeper inside of you, from there, that you need to pay attention to, that you need to lean into and come into. It's not a problem. It's a signpost toward the solution. Hello. Welcome back to the Art of Awakening podcast, where the art of living awake becomes a daily practice. I'm your host, Dr. Sue Morter, and I'm thrilled to be back with you again today. I am so looking forward. We are diving into a topic that's at the heart of living an awakened life. And it's all about, how do you trust your intuition and release your resistance in life? And I'd also like to speak to, how do you know the difference between this brilliant intuitive impulse that you're receiving, or are you just afraid? One of those kinds of things. So we're going to dive in. And before we begin, I want to take a moment here, and I'd like for us to just pause. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whether you're sipping your morning tea or commuting or winding down for the day, I just want you to take a deep breath. You'd be amazed at the medicine that brings to your body, to your life. You are actually breath in a body. That's your true nature. And when we bring our attention to the breath and honor it, we're actually honoring a version of ourselves that gets set by the wayside when we get involved in the doing of life. So I want you to think about now a time that you felt a gut instinct or a quiet nudge that was guiding you. I know that you've all had that experience. And, my question will become, in our conversation today, how often is that happening in your life? Because that nudge or that instinct, that gut feeling, is actually a mode of communication that is by design intended to be guiding your everyday, your life. Constantly, continuously, by design. We're built that way. We are a sensory mechanism. We are built with billions of sensory receptors. In fact, 10 to 100 to 1,000 times more sensory than motor. It's about listening and perceiving to have a successful life. It's not just about doing, but we live in cultures that are completely obsessed with, what do I do? What do I say? What do I do? When do I say it? How do I do it? And all the while, we're getting further and further away from the actual flow that is intended to have us living a life of abundance and wholeness and wealth and flourishing in love and friendship and opportunity. So let's go back to this hunch that you have every once in a while. Let's ask you some questions about it. Maybe it led to a decision that you made, a path that you followed, or even a moment of clarity that kind of came out of nowhere. Well, you did just kind of get in touch with it. When I have these things, what's happening? Where's it coming from? How am I perceiving it? What are the ways that I get in touch with it? Okay. Now, I'm going to invite you to think of a moment in time when you felt resistance, like you were pushing against something. Like something wasn't quite right, but you couldn't put your finger on it. But there's just this friction. There's just some kind of something in the air. Now, what if I told you, if both of these experiences, intuition and resistance, were deeply connected? Well, that's what we're going to explore today. All right. So intuition is how the soul communicates. It communicates through vibrational energy frequency that your mind connects with, if your mind is focused on the right place and in the right way. An inner knowing comes with intuition. And intuition is always on the rise. It's always rising to your awareness. The question is, what do you do with your mind every day that would allow you to either perceive it or completely miss it? But that intuitive inner knowing is always, like 100% of the time, available to you. So if you're not plugged into it, because you're busy doing other things with your mind, then I just want to share this. You're not using your mind the way your mind was designed to be used, and that's why you have so much friction in your life if you do. That's why it's hard to make decisions, or it's hard to know what to do, or you can't seem to get that business up and running, or you can't seem to follow through with promises that you would love to make to yourself or to other people. Those kinds of inabilities show up because of our misuse of the mind. Okay, we're going to explore that a little bit. Intuitive energy flows through the central channel of your body, and it radiates outward into the biofield, connecting you with the universal field of energy again. Now, keep in mind, you are the universal field of energy compressing itself into form, and there's not supposed to be anything between the you that you experience walking down the street and the you that is connected to this universal intelligence. There's not supposed to be a veil in between the two. And we have the ability to dissolve that veil. By listening intuitively, we do so. We begin to connect this inner magnificence with this vast outer magnificent expression of the entire cosmos. So research shows that the body often knows before the mind does. This is definitely true. The field around the body knows long before something even happens. In other words, the field holds a distortion or becomes impressed with a distortion of some sort, and then an action occurs, and then we become aware of its happening. It's in a different order than what we think. So we've actually seen that there is interference in the field, and then someone steps off the curb and breaks their ankle, right? It's in the field. So what if you were using your mind in a manner that could tap the field, that could be plugged in to what's happening, the ripples and the rifts and the interferences that are happening in the field? What if they were constantly giving you an opportunity to be precognitive, to know before something unfolds that it's going to? Well, this is actually how we're meant to be operating. So when we see, experience, or meet someone who is clairvoyant or clairaudient or in some way clairsentient, sensing, feeling, perceiving, knowing, hearing, clairaudient, hearing these things in some supernatural sort of way, it is cosmic, but it doesn't have to be a mystery. It's actually how you are built too. And if you find yourself saying, no, I'm not one of those people. I don't have that thing. I'm not plugged in that way. You could be. And so here's what I know. When I work with people in my short programs, in my year-long programs, it doesn't matter. We're always working toward building more circuitry. And the more circuitry that we build, this is electromagnetic energy flow, the more pathways that we carve inside our own energy field for this concentrated flow of energy, it then becomes neural synapses where we can perceive imagery and ideas and perceptions and intuitions. And so it's a matter of circuits. It's a circuitry issue. So when we think of an intuition as a sort of divine whisper, it is happening, but it's in a more subtle realm than what we're used to dialing into. So when I ask you to take a deep breath, I'm inviting you to drop in to a little bit more of a subtle awareness about your life. We talk about the art of awakening, and what are we awakening to? We're awakening to the wholeness of our being, and it definitely includes an intuitive, perceptive field in the wholeness of your being. And so when you take a deep breath and you feel yourself deep inside your core instead of living in your head all the time, what you're doing is cultivating the opportunity to build more neurocircuitry to perceive what's going on in the gut region. Because in that gut region, there are billions of bits of information that are being absorbed and received by little antennas on every cell within your system. And they report to the endocrine system certain messages that derive the need for particular chemistries that the endocrine system then is responsive to and creates. And those neuropeptides and those those chemistries that are rising in in terms of neurotransmission and hormonal chemistry and many other aspects of molecular communication, what's starting to happen is messages are on the rise, and they're rising up through your whole system up to the high brain centers for interpretation and translation, if you let them. But we interfere with their arrival in those high brain centers because we get lodged in the primitive brain before we ever arrive to these spaces. And in doing so, we're constantly ruminating and looking for safety and sorting for shoulds and shouldn'ts and judgments and all sorts of ways that we are interfering with the natural flow of information upward into our conscious awareness. So we have to dial in to, how could I hear a whisper? Think about it. How could I hear a whisper? If someone were whispering and across the room and whispering, I would have to dial in my focus in a different way. And what if that focus was dialed in to you deeply internally in your own physical system, into the deep core central channel where this master system of interaction is taking place? That master system has vibrations of its own. It speaks a language of its own. And when you stymie, still, arrest the thinking mind enough, consistently enough, regularly, and potently enough, you become connected to that vibrational field deep within. You become connected to the voice of the cosmos, the master voice, the master. You become connected to what the ancient saints and sages have referenced as listening to the master. We've oftentimes projected that master as a person that was walking around as a glorious teacher on the planet. We've had many of those. But I assure you, those teachers were listening to something. They were listening to something more subtle than what the average individual is listening to. But humanity is on the rise. Humanity is waking. That's what the chaos and the crazy out there is all about. It's the stir that's happening, and it is begging you to drop inside. So, as we do, you may go through layers of your being that feel relieved and feel beautiful and feel connected. And you may also come upon layers of your being where you feel resistance, where you feel a friction that is happening. And that is often misunderstood as something to fight or to fix or to get away from, as a signal that something is wrong. But it's actually just exactly the same thing that I've been referring to. That resistance that we feel on our way into the depths of our being is simply us getting into touch with a deeper sense of truth. We experience it as friction. We experience it as something uncomfortable that we oftentimes deflect away from, when all the while we should move into it, because that resistance is around the solar plexus. It's around the deep core of your being that happens to resonate with and represent what you perceive yourself to be and be capable of. And when we start to challenge that by bringing presence to and beyond that barrier, that boundary that now has limitations on who we would allow ourselves to be, when we start to question that with our presence and our breath, we start to feel that as friction. We feel it as a resistance. And if you'll keep dropping in more deeply and breathing right in the face of that resistance, you will break through into a deeper version of yourself. You will break through the barriers of a box that you've created for yourself in terms of being smaller than you really are. That box was built during your formative years when you didn't think you had what it took to be you in the face of the circumstances that you were in. And so you receded, you dropped way in, and then you built layers of protection, cloaking yourself and building ways of being that were externally motivated and fear initiated. And as a byproduct of that, those layers have been keeping you in that box. So it's not going to work. If you haven't noticed, it's not going to work because it keeps you smaller than you really are. It keeps you from pursuing the things that you really want to. It keeps you from saying the things that you mean. It keeps you from doing the things that you say. It keeps you from dreaming. It keeps you from looking at best case scenarios. It keeps you from you. So that's not going to work. So when you feel resistance, whether it has been named frustration or sadness or tension, it is your body's reveal to you that there's something on the other side of that, deeper inside of you, from there, that you need to pay attention to, that you need to lean into and come into. It's not a problem. It's a signpost toward the solution. We experience it in the solar plexus, in the belly, in the gut, because of this box that we've put around ourselves for protection. And when we start to feel that, we associate it with something negative, so we just abandon ship. We just stop doing that, and we go on to do something else. We keep ourselves busy, or we find other ways of interacting in the world, or we get smarter. Right? We start thinking more. All the while, that's taking us in the opposite direction. And so we'll be back to that. So when someone suffers from too much resistance and friction and frustration and sadness and tension, it's because they're never allowing themselves to drop in more deeply, more inward, in a manner that would allow them to access where this intuition is rising from. It's rising from a deep pool of wisdom that is in your deep, deep core. Think of the pelvic floor, and then go upward to where your navel is, and right behind your navel, and then down, up, down to the pelvic floor, and then up to this level of the navel, and just above it, and then back down to the pelvic floor. All right in there is the base of a vessel that contains the wisdom of the cosmos. It contains ancestral inherited wisdom as well. The wisdom of your lineage is there. That which has worked, that has propelled us forward for millennia. It's all right there. And we don't live there. And so we don't receive and perceive the brilliance from these vibrational frequency versions of ourselves, unless for some reason, in some moment, we happen to stop thinking just enough that something can slip up through, and we catch it, and we call it a hunch. We call it a gut feeling or an intuition. But it's meant to be a constant form of information and guidance that is happening all day, every day. It's not a blockage, an energy that you feel when you feel this resistance. It's just showing you where you've built yourself inside of a smaller container than is actually true for us. And it wants to move. This energy by design wants to be flowing ever upward. In fact, we work hard to protect it. Every time we get triggered and then move away from our triggering, culprit, and don't process the information any more deeply, we are validating that and confirming that encapsulation. So by leaning into it, you uncover your intuition, what is guiding you forward. You uncover what your intuition is guiding you toward. You uncover the true essential self. And so the next time you're feeling resistance, just pause for a moment and try not to assign something bad to it. Or worse yet, try not to look around and see who to blame for what you're feeling. Or in some insidious way, try not to start over-observing others and wondering why they don't do this or share that with you or show you how you're okay or give some sort of feedback to convince you of your wholeness. That is not what we're here for. That is what we do, and that is what we must not do. We must lean inward, because everything that you've ever been wanting anyone or anything to ever deliver for you is inside. And the only reason you're not perceiving it is because we bounce off the moment of resistance, when all the while it's trying to take us into our deepest truth and knowing. So ask the question, When you feel the resistance, what is this felt sense that I'm feeling asking me to notice? Where is it calling me into? Deep within. And if you don't know the answer to where it's calling you deep within, maybe you ask the question this way: where's it coming from? Where is this resistance coming from? And it's going to take you into a place of your own physiology in that area that I was just describing. Somewhere just above the navel, just below the navel, all the way down to the pelvic floor, somewhere right in there is where your answers are, believe it or not. And so it's time to stop living in our heads all the time and allow the body to contribute to completing our perception of self. Intuition guides you toward alignment, while resistance highlights where you're out of alignment, but resistance shows you also how to get into that alignment. So when someone is wondering, well, how do I know if it's not fear or something that I should actually be, a gut feeling that I should actually move away from this situation, like it's really endangering me? Just think about this. Intuition, true intuition, is declarative. It will tell you, black and white, do this, call your sister, turn left here, don't go that way today, pick up this book. You're walking through a bookstore, grab this one. It's declarative. It doesn't have drama around it. Resistance and fear, or fear of all of that, is accompanied by drama. There's a charge, there's an attachment, there's something you're trying to get away from. It's protective in nature. And there's nothing wrong with protection, but I assure you, we live with far too much protection in the front of mind. We live with that as a baseline. And protection and safety are not good enough goals for you. There's a bigger world waiting for you. It comes through adventure and curiosity. It comes through stilling yourself enough to sit down inside yourself and feel the intuitive guidance. That intuitive guidance might steer you away from something, but it won't feel dramatic. Your mind might chime in a little bit later and get dramatic, like if this intuition says, don't do that anymore, just don't do that anymore, do this thing instead. And you start to go that way to do this new thing instead. And then a few seconds later, your mind comes chiming in from the protective personality's position saying, yeah, but if you do that, what if this happens? And if you do that, this is going to happen. And then they're going to do this, and it's going to get dramatic. But just prior to that dramatic moment, was it declarative? Was it clear? Was it black and white? Was it strong and sure? Because if it was, it's your true path. And if you'll have the courage to move slightly, ever so slightly in that direction, even if it's just to write it down, even if you can't take a step into speaking into some situation, if you write it down, you're manifesting it all the way here into the physical world, and eventually it will have an effect on your entire biofield because of it, because you're claiming it. You're not letting it just fly by. So with enough of that happening, and then learning how to build the circuitry to sustain that orientation where these kinds of messages come through, is what it's all about. That's what we can do. That's what we do all the time inside of Morter Institute. So just know that when you trust your intuition and you release the fear around it, little by little, step by step, you create a space for energy to flow freshly and freely through your body and your biofield and into your life, even, more profoundly. So many people want their lives to change, but we have to realize that your life is just an outpicturing of how you're allowing your energy to flow in your system. And I assure you, the deeper you go into the core of your being, the more you will be able to guide how the energy moves through your body and through your life. And that abundance comes when you sit down in the seat of this great wisdom, which is down in the base of this vessel that I'm speaking about. Awakening isn't about avoiding discomfort. It's about integrating all of the aspects of life. It's about allowing for the goodness to flow. It's about allowing everything to be guidance for you, and for you to be grounded and in the body enough to be able to translate these messages that are rippling through your system with accuracy, clarity, and reliability, so that you're not bouncing off of things all the time, following these various feelings that you're having. Don't confuse those emotional feelings with this deep guttural intuition. So the question comes, what role do you allow intuition to play in your life right now? I would guarantee that if you allowed that to enhance and for that role to increase in its volume, in its percentage of moments where you allow it to help you make decisions, where it becomes more central in your focus, your life will improve proportionally. There is no doubt about it. You are made of more than logic and reason. You are made of the miraculous. And the reasoning mind would experience the miraculous doorway as an intuitive gut feeling hunch. So you want to go with that so that you can get into this larger realm, this larger sphere of who you are, and have a larger impact on your ability to express the divine through your own life choices and your life experiences, and through your own physical healings and your mental reprieve and your ability to dance in life the way that you were intended to dance. So do you fight it? Do you ignore it when it does show up? Do you get freaked out about it? Do you say, oh God, I got this gut feeling on something and I'm really freaking out about it? I want you to understand this. You are seated as the personality when you're talking that way. When those are the impressions and the interpretations and the translations and then the responses to intuition, you're seated as the protective personality. So take a step back and take a breath and be grateful for the intuition and the gut feeling to begin with. And just keep sitting in the silence and in the stillness and breathing your appreciation until it gets big enough inside of you that it carries you into motion upon it, that you can honor it, that you can bring life into it, that you can give it legs and hands and a voice, because it's the true self that's on the rise. That's what it is. Intuition is just how the protective personality perceives the true soulful self speaking. It's always speaking. And as we get these inklings, that's how we start to follow the breadcrumbs into actually discovering the true essential soulful self. It's all of that when we're in the body. When we're not in the body, we can be clairvoyant and we can be a medium and we can do all kinds of things, but our lives oftentimes are not settled and grounded and integrated, and you can have it all. You can have that intuitive ability and that clarity, and you can be in the body with it, and you can heal because of it. You can be strong and vital and resilient in ways that you never thought possible before. And it's all because we're using the system the way the system was meant to be used. Utilizing it instead of ignoring it. Leaning into it instead of running away from it. So, if you saw it not as an obstacle, all of it, but as a doorway into this true essential self, your life will change. Tiny little moments of awareness lead to profound transformation. They build upon each other. And every time you do, you get to build circuits of familiarity. So maybe you want to pick up something about meditation. We certainly offer you things about that. Learn intentional breath work with gentle movement. We certainly are doing that inside of our Body Awake Yoga. We have these resources here for you. So don't think you have to go out there and find it. You already have, just like everything else in life. It's right under your nose. All right. So check it out. Feel into that and allow this to be an ongoing, true state for you day in and day out. All right. So, I just want to thank you for leaning into yourself and allowing just a few moments every day or every so often to listen to a conversation that matters most. It's about you waking up to the truth of you. So I want to thank you for spending this time with me today on the Art of Awakening podcast, blending science and spirituality to empower you to create a life that you truly love living. So don't forget to subscribe and to share this podcast. And until next time, I'm Dr. Sue Morter. Blessings, blessings to you all. Bye-bye for now.